Hi, my name is Ed Dodson and I work at Magdalen College, Oxford. Today I'm going to talk to you about my area of research, postcolonial literature and criticism, in order to give you a brief insight into what it is like to study English or any literature-based course at university. In particular, I'm going to discuss the ways in which the term postcolonial is applied to different kinds of writers and what this means for those writers, as well as for readers and critics. In the context of post-war or contemporary British literature, the term postcolonial has often been applied to Black and Asian writers. General surveys of the period, of which there are many, frequently use postcolonial as a euphemism for non-white, and this has become a way of lumping all such writers under one heading. You can see a selection of examples here. Andrzej Gasiorek, in post-war British fiction, restricts his discussion of colonialism to Wiesnipal and George Lamming, and of postcolonialism to Salman Rushdie. Peter Childs, similarly, in Contemporary Novelists, associates Britain's imperial past and postcolonial present with a familiar group of authors, Salman Rushdie, Hanif Qureshi, and Zadie Smith. Similar groupings can be found in Brian Finney's English fiction since 1984, as well as Nick Bentley's contemporary British fiction. Such literary categorisations are often tied to authors' biographies. This is true for gender and sexuality as much as for race. Most of the writers above, who are sometimes called Black British writers, have their roots in British colonies, past and present. V.S. Naipaul, for instance, was born in colonial Trinidad. Zadie Smith was born in London to an English father and a Jamaican mother. As a result, they are perceived to have a particular investment in postcolonial questions of race and empire. This is a perception that is often, but by no means always, true. Numerous contemporary writers and critics have complained about what they call the ghettoization of Black and Asian literature within Britain. In the words of 2019 Booker Prize winner Bernardine Evaristo, quote, "If you are a Black writer, you are deemed to be writing about Black subjects, and that is generally perceived to be for a Black audience," end quote. According to the Scottish and Sierra Leonean writer Aminata Fauna, quote, "I have never met a writer who wishes to be described as a female writer, gay writer, Black writer, Asian writer, or African writer. We hyphenated writers complain about the privilege according to the white male writer, he who dominates the Western canon, and is the only one simply called writer." There are a number of ways to tackle this question of naming. One is to expand the definition of postcolonial beyond the confines of race, to read white writers as postcolonial too. Several critics have argued that white writers from Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, Irvine Welsh, author of Trainspotting, or Bernard McClavity, for instance, might also be considered postcolonial, or at least brought into conversations about postcolonial writing. A parallel is suggested here between the peripheries of the empire and the so-called peripheries of the UK, especially in the era of devolution. Another approach would entail making a distinction between postcolonial authors and postcolonial texts. In much postcolonial criticism, there is an implicit link between the two. As the opening page of a foundational work in the field declares, quote, "This book is concerned with writing by those peoples formerly colonised by Britain," end quote. The emphasis here is on who rather than what. Certain critics, however, argue that an author's ethnicity ought not define what is or is not considered a postcolonial text, or what is or is not considered a text worthy of postcolonial analysis. Michael Perfect, who includes the white British writers Chris Cleave and Stephen Kelman in his 2014 book Contemporary Fictions of Multiculturalism, tells his reader that, quote, "Authorial ethnicity is one form of background to which I have attempted to resist ascribing importance," end quote. Finally, an alternative and complementary solution would be, as critic Timothy Ogene argues, to momentarily de-postcolonize the works of writers like Evaristo and Fauna, by discussing their writing outside of the frames of race and empire. This is something that we have been exploring in the Oxford English faculty through the Postcolonial Writers Make Worlds project. The website for this project, which you can see here and where you can find an article version of this talk, brings together Black and Asian writers in and around the UK, but without foregrounding their racial identities or imposing postcolonial themes on their work. At the same time, as the project title suggests, the term postcolonial is not being discarded entirely. One article in particular alerts us to the problems of certain forms of literary categorization. Writing about the poet Manisa Alvey, William Ghosh states, quote, "Fantasy is central to Alvey's work. People misunderstood her first collection, she has claimed." End quote. In Alvey's own words, which you can see here, quote, "They thought I was writing about my memories of Pakistan. I was writing about my fantasies. I hadn't been there." End quote. Although Alvey was born in Pakistan, her family migrated to Hertfordshire when she was an infant, and she has no memories of the country, only fantasies. The title of her first full-length collection, The Country at My Shoulder, 1993, gestures towards her ambiguous relationship with national identities. The question I want to leave you with then is, what is the role of postcolonial as a label today? It is, after all, 50 or so years after the major processes of decolonisation, to which the term originally referred. Is postcolonialism still an effective tool for addressing contemporary writing in Britain, produced by a range of writers from many different cultural backgrounds? In order to explore this question further, I recommend that you take a look at some of these resources. The first two are produced by Oxford University, and the third by Cambridge. The final resource provides an opportunity to chat online with current students at Magdalen College and to find out more about studying at Oxford. Thanks for listening.